welcome back to my cottage kitchen. Today we are going to be making some absolutely delicious homemade side dishes that you can either make or bring to Thanksgiving, which is right around the corner. I absolutely love Thanksgiving. It kind of rivals Christmas for me. And I think that's because it's outside of all the cooking, which is a lot of work. It's a pretty low-key holiday. I don't have to be like buying gifts for anyone. There's no like real stress involved. And you guys know I am so passionate about like gathering around the table and eating real food with your family. It just feeds your body and your soul. And there are so few opportunities in life to do this with extended family. So it's just something that I absolutely cherish, both on my side of the family, my husband's side of the family. It's just something I really look forward to every year. Now, I have also totally lucked out on Thanksgiving. I've never had to host it myself. On my mom's side of the family, my aunt hosts every year. And on my husband's side of the family, his sister hosts every year, and we go back and forth. So I've never had to take on the full brunt. Honestly, I would be so intimidated. Maybe someday down the line, I'll find myself in that position. But for now, I fully enjoy being a guest who just brings something or a couple things really yummy to the feast. So that's what I'm gonna share with you guys today. I'm gonna share with you 4 things that I have personally made and brought to Thanksgiving that I absolutely love for different reasons. And these would make great additions to add to your Thanksgiving table, whether you're hosting or you're a guest. I'm wearing my dress I plan to wear on Thanksgiving, so I'm feeling very festive. I've got my latte, so I am ready to cook. So let's get started. All right, first up, we are gonna be making my favorite cranberry sauce. I shared this a few years ago, and so many of you guys now make it every year and bring it to your family table, which just makes me happy. It is a naturally sweetened, all real food ingredient cranberry sauce. It's very easy to make, and it's something you can make ahead of time too, which is great. I know some people love their canned cranberry sauce. It's like a nostalgia thing, or they just quite literally enjoy the taste. I've never been a cranberry sauce fan. There's just something about like the gloppy can-shaped cranberry sauce that comes out of the can that's just never been appetizing to me. Plus, a lot of times it's sweetened with like high fructose corn syrup. So it's just something that I've never enjoyed. I've always avoided. But now that I have a homemade version that I love, I am a huge cranberry sauce convert. So now I can't do Thanksgiving without it. So what you're gonna need is 12 ounces of fresh cranberries. And then how to sweeten it, we're gonna use 2 things. We're going to use pears, and we're also going to use honey. So typically in years past when I made this, I buy Bartlett pears, which are like the larger kind of brown colored pears. But these are Anjou pears, so they're definitely smaller. So normally I use 2 pears for every bag of cranberries, but since these are a little bit smaller, I'm gonna actually double it and I'm gonna use 4 because this is like about the same as 2 of those big pears. So then we're gonna sweeten it with some honey, and then we're gonna add a cup of water. We're gonna add a little pinch of salt, a little pinch of cinnamon, and you basically just throw everything into a pot, let it simmer, and turn into a like gelatinized, delicious sauce. So the first thing we're gonna do before we get to that step is we're going to peel all of our pears and then dice them. So we have our pears all chopped up, peeled. So now we're basically just gonna dump everything into a big, I'm just using my cast iron Dutch oven, but any pot will work. You just want something that has sides because this will kind of bubble up. And I've made it in a skillet before and it was a close call. Like it almost boiled over. So definitely do it in a big pot. Okay, so I have my Dutch oven. And we're just gonna combine everything, which is super easy. It's just a dump and cook kind of recipe. So we've got all of our cranberries, all of our pears, and I'll be curious to see how this batch turns out because these pears seem a little bit tartar and not quite as sweet as the Bosc pears that I usually use. So that'll be interesting. And then obviously we're gonna wanna sweeten it up. So honey, I'm gonna eyeball about a half a cup. This is raw honey, which is just typically what I buy and stock my pantry with. But it's gonna get cooked, so all those benefits of the raw honey will go away. So if you wanna use not quite so expensive raw honey, then go ahead. 1 cup of water. And then I just do like a pinch of cinnamon and a big pinch of salt. So I have this started on like medium-high heat because I want to bring it to a boil. And then once it's boiling, we're going to turn it down to a simmer. And then you're just going to let it simmer for about 25 minutes. Give it a stir every once in a while. But basically you're going to see the cranberries start to pop, and it's going to release a lot of juices from the pears and the cranberries, and it's going to become more of like a soup mixture. Cranberry sauce is almost done. It smells so good in my kitchen right now. As soon as I smell this, I'm like, oh, Thanksgiving is here. Okay, so all we're gonna do now is take I'm gonna use like a potato masher and go through, and you just wanna kind of break up the pears, and the cranberries are pretty much broken down, but you just wanna break it down a little bit more so it's not like super chunky, and you can kind of do it however much you want to make the texture that you want. I always like to have a little bit of texture left. I don't want it to be like perfectly smooth, but I do like to mash it down quite a bit. Okay, so the cranberry sauce has cooled just a bit, and now it's time to put it into jars. So I just spoon it in and store it in the fridge. So you could absolutely make this in advance of Thanksgiving. I find that it keeps in the fridge for, I leave it in there for like several weeks and it's fine. You could also can it too. If you really wanted it to be like shelf stable and last a really long time, but it is so good. It still has some texture to it. You can kind of see the fresh cranberries in there, but it's just so good. Obviously, to use as a side or a dressing with your Thanksgiving meal. But I also love to put this on Greek yogurt. It's also really good on vanilla ice cream. There's a lot of different ways that you can use it up. So I usually make a bunch this time of year. It also makes great gifts. If you know anyone who's hosting Thanksgiving, this is such an easy thing to make. Just put it in a jar, maybe put a cute bow on it, and it's just something that's super thoughtful and something that they can use to grace their Thanksgiving table. So that is how you make the cranberry sauce. It's so very easy. It's also a great recipe to make with kids because you can't really mess it up. And oh, it smells so good. Food is one of the greatest joys of life, and it's also our body's main source of nourishment, both on a micro and a macro level. But it can definitely be a challenge to, one, understand nutrition, and two, be able to apply it and navigate how to eat healthy without it becoming this big source of stress, which is why I am so excited to tell you guys about Nourish. Nourish is the easiest way to find and speak to a registered dietitian and have it covered by your insurance. So you may already know this, but I am a registered dietitian, and I actually started off my career in one-on-one nutrition counseling. So I can tell you firsthand just how valuable it is to be able to speak to a qualified nutrition professional, walk them through what it is your diet looks like now, what you feel you need to improve, get that evidence-based education, and learn the tools that allows you to actually apply that knowledge to your unique situation. We all know there is an abundance of nutrition information you can find online, but it's general and it's not tailored to your specific needs and routines. And by working with an RD, they can take a close look at your situation and help you to create those new healthy habits that will bring about change, all in a way that actually makes sense for you. Something I absolutely love about Nourish is their dietitians are there to help you create lifelong skills when it comes to eating healthier. There are no quick fixes or fad diets that are eventually just going to fizzle out. And while I know those can be attractive, they don't actually get you any closer to making sustainable, healthy change that the Nourish dietitians can actually help you achieve. And the Nourish dietitians have an array of different focuses and specialties. Maybe you want to improve your gut health, or you're dealing with the changes in perimenopause and menopause. Maybe you're in your childbearing years and you want to focus on prenatal nutrition. Maybe you want guidance on nutrition for athletic training, or maybe you have diabetes and you're navigating that, or maybe you want to improve your relationship with food. No matter what it is, working with a dietitian is incredibly helpful to not only target those goals you're after, but to discern what are all those little steps I need to take in between to actually reach that goal in a way that fits into my unique lifestyle and is going to be sustainable for me. And you guys, the best part is Nourish accepts hundreds of different insurances across all 50 states. 94% of Nourish patients pay $0 out of pocket. To me, this is such a no-brainer because I guess I just know firsthand the value of working with a dietitian, especially if you are like me and you are always after more preventative versus reactive healthcare. So if you guys are interested in checking out Nourish for yourself, I'm going to leave a link down below in the description box for you. You can sign up in just 5 minutes and get started with your first appointment. All right, so this next one is one that I am very excited about because it's not something that I grew up eating traditionally on Thanksgiving, but something that I have come to love in the last few years. So my brother-in-law has some family roots in Texas, and he's the one that brought this recipe to us up here on the East Coast, and it was an instant hit. And of course, now my mom asks him to bring it to Thanksgiving every year, and that is corn casserole. Now, the way his family always makes it is with a good old box of Jiffy cornbread mix, which is totally fine. But knowing me, you guys know I want to make a homemade version. So I will link the exact recipe I'm following for this down below. But we're gonna start with our dry ingredients. So you're gonna need some all-purpose flour, and then you're going to need some cornmeal, of course, because this is kind of like a cornbread corn casserole. And then a little bit of sugar, some baking powder, and a little bit of salt. So now we're gonna mix up all of our wet ingredients. So we have some creamed corn. We also have just regular canned corn with all the liquid drained. We have some melted butter, sour cream, 2 eggs, half and half, which I never buy, but I do have milk and cream, so I'm just going to combine half and half. So I'm gonna mix up all of our wet ingredients, and then I'm going to add in our dry ingredients till they're just combined, and then we're gonna fold in a little bit of shredded cheese before getting this into the oven. So our corn casserole is ready to go in the oven. So the recipe says bake it for 55 to 60 minutes. I'm gonna start there. I am using a slightly smaller pan. This is an 8 by 8 inch dish. The recipe is 9 by 12. So I'm expecting it to take a little bit longer, but we're gonna start there, and basically I'm just gonna bake it until a toothpick comes out clean. Okay. All right, our corn casserole is fully baked. It smells amazing. And I'm just letting this cool for 10 minutes or so. Ideally, you want to serve it warm. So if you're making this on Thanksgiving Day, you can even make it ahead of time and just reheat it. Or if you're making it fresh that day, just you want it to be baking pretty close to dinner time because you want to serve it warm. All right, next up, we are going to be making a cranberry almond Brussels sprout salad. You may be thinking, salad, really, Becca? Like, we're not eating salad on Thanksgiving, which I understand. Thanksgiving tends to be more those like hot and heavy, delicious, decadent dishes. But hear me out. There is something about just a little bit of this salad on your plate that just brings that like zingy, fresh crunchiness to an otherwise very hot, heavy, decadent meal. So I personally think it's a wonderful addition to any Thanksgiving plate. I also love this salad in particular because logistically it's very easy to bring to whoever's house who's hosting Thanksgiving, or even if you are hosting it yourself, you can kind of mix it up ahead of time because we are using Brussels sprouts and not like greens, lettuce, spring mix, something like that. The Brussels sprouts really hold up well and they don't really wilt. So you don't have to wait until right before dinner to dress the salad and mix it, which typically you'd have to do with salad. So it's kind of great as a somewhat make ahead. I mean, like just a couple hours before, and it's still going to be fresh and crunchy and delicious. So we're obviously going to be using Brussels sprouts. Now you can just buy them and slice them real thin yourself, but I like to just skip a step because my local grocery store always carries like shaved Brussels sprouts, which is exactly what we're looking for. So I'm gonna be using these. When I'm making it today, I'm gonna be making a smaller amount because it's just like me and my immediate family eating this today. But normally I would make a bigger amount so I could bring a big salad. I'm going to link the recipe down below that I'm using as inspiration. I am switching up a couple of things, which I'll get to, but mostly I'm following it. Next, I'm gonna use some sliced almonds as the nut in the salad. In the recipe, they use pine nuts, which I'm sure would be delicious, but I just don't typically stock those, and I always have sliced almonds, and I thought that would be delicious too, so I figured I would just use what I have on hand. We're gonna, of course, be adding in some dried cranberries for that little bit of sweetness and tang, plus I feel like cranberries just go really well with Thanksgiving. I also have here just some chopped up green onions, just for a little bit of an oniony kick. It kind of brings a depth to this otherwise very simple salad. And I also have some shredded Parmesan cheese that we're gonna add as well. And then the dressing is just super simple. It's just olive oil, lemon juice, salt, and pepper. So I'm basically just going to add all of this together, toss everything together, and then I'm going to reserve a little bit of each of the add-ins, like the almonds and the cranberries and the cheese, to sprinkle on the top, so it's like just a prettier presentation, especially if you're bringing this to a Thanksgiving meal or making it at your own home if you're hosting. It's nice to have a pretty presentation. Okay, last but certainly not least, we are going to be making a pumpkin pie together, which technically is not a side dish, it's a dessert, but I don't think you guys are going to mind. So I made this pumpkin pie last year and brought it to Thanksgiving, and it was so good. So I knew I had to share it here in this Thanksgiving video. So we're going to make pumpkin pie, starting out with a homemade pie crust. I actually made this yesterday because I wanted it to be able to chill in the fridge overnight. So I did, in a food processor, 2 cups of flour, 2 tablespoons of sugar, a half teaspoon of salt. I pulsed that up all together. Then I added in 2 sticks of butter that I cut up into chunks and pulsed that until it basically made like little butter beads. And then I added in a total of 8 tablespoons of ice cold water. to form the actual crust. So you want it to like just come together. And for me, 8 tablespoons worked perfectly. I will link this exact recipe down below. I did cut it in half because I'm only making a bottom crust, but it's from Elizabeth Poet. She has the show Ranch to Table. And this is the pie crust that I've had like the best luck with and I think just tastes the best. I am no pie aficionado. I am very new to pie making, but I had a really good luck with this crust and it just turned out like really crispy and flaky and delicious. So now we're gonna take our pie crust. It's been chilling overnight. I took it out about 10 minutes ago for it to soften just a little bit. And we're going to roll it out. And if you saw my fall baking video, you know that this is the part where I get really nervous because I always mess it up. But on that video, one of you guys told me to go watch Marie's Kitchen here on YouTube, which is an excellent channel, and she has pie crust tutorials, and I picked up a few tips from her. So I'm gonna try her method of rolling it out, and hopefully it works out smoothly because it never has before. All right, so I'm gonna sprinkle some flour. She used a baking mat, so we're gonna try that. I'm just following exactly what she did because whenever I do it, it never turns out super great. It's always like a battle to actually get it rolled out properly. Okay, so I'm gonna get some flour on my hands too. And basically I'm going to roll it out into try and do it in a perfect circle. And her main tip was just to keep turning it a quarter turn while you are rolling it out so that it doesn't stick. And that's always my problem. And also it helps it make an actual circle and not like a funky shape. So let's try it. Okay, so I have my crust all rolled out. It's not sticking, but it is like it had a lot of cracks, so it's not by no means a perfect circle shape, but that's okay. I think I can just kind of make it work. So we're gonna get this in my pie dish and then we'll go from there. We have a pie crust. I had to kind of hodgepodge it a little bit, but I think it's gonna be fine. When I made this last year, I definitely struggled with the crust, so it still turned out delicious, so I'm not that worried about it. But we've got our crust. I'm gonna cover this with the plastic wrap. I'm gonna put it in the freezer for about 20 minutes before we do the blind baking. So the reason you wanna do that is because this dough's been sitting out, my hands have been all over it, it's warmed up a little bit, and butter is the key. So when butter is warmish and you put it in a hot oven, it's just gonna melt. But when butter is really cold and it hits that high heat, the water, there's about 20% of butter is water, and that will actually turn to steam, and that's what creates those little layers and pockets, and that's what makes a dough flaky when it's baked, and that's what we want. We don't want a mushy crust, we want a crisp, flaky crust. So it's important that it goes in the oven. This is the kind of thing where I'd be like tempted to skip this step and just like, get it in the oven. But it really is, the butter is make or break for this crust to turn out flaky. So I'm gonna pop that in the oven for 20 minutes. And while I do that, I'm gonna preheat my oven to 400. We're gonna bake this first partially to bake the crust before we add the filling and do the final bake. Okay, so I just pulled my crust out of the freezer. Just gonna gently take off this plastic wrap. And then I'm gonna place my pie pan on a baking sheet with parchment paper for 2 reasons. One, I don't wanna put an ice cold pie dish on a super hot oven rack, but also if any of the butter drips, it's just gonna catch all the mess. So we're going to par bake it or blind bake it so that it can start to set before we actually bake it later. But we need to make sure it's gonna keep its shape. So I'm just gonna take some parchment paper, line the inside, and then pour in some dried beans. That's a pretty classic way to do so. And then we're going to put it in the oven for about 20 minutes, and then we're gonna take it out, take off the beans and the parchment, put it back in for about 5 minutes. I'm just following the recipe for the pumpkin pie, which I don't think I mentioned that. I'm using it from a book. I'll put a picture of the full recipe here for you guys so you can screenshot it, but I'm just following exactly what they say to do as far as the blind baking. All right, here we go. All right, so my crust is blind baking, and now we're gonna make the pumpkin pie filling. So that recipe that I'm following is from this Williams-Sonoma, it's like dessert of the day book I've had for a long time. And this is the exact recipe I followed last year, and it was so good. So for the filling, we need pumpkin puree, brown sugar, maple syrup, whole milk, heavy cream, 2 eggs, a little bit of flour, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, and salt. Okay, so for the filling, we're starting off with a full can of just 100% pure pumpkin. The only ingredient is organic pumpkin. And then we're gonna add 2/3 cup of brown sugar. And then 1/3 cup of maple syrup. And we're just gonna combine all of that together. Okay, then we're gonna add 2/3 cup of whole milk. Yeah, milk. And then a 1/2 cup heavy cream.
Milk.
I'm gonna add in 2 eggs. Please. And now we're just gonna mix that all until it's smooth. Okay, my pie just finished the first 20 minutes of baking, so I'm gonna pull that out. Okay, I'm removing all of the beans. Put those over here. Now I'm gonna pop it back in for about 5 minutes, mainly to help this bottom part of the crust cook a little bit more. It's already looking a little crispy, so I feel like I need to change my oven setting. This oven has a lot of different settings, and sometimes it's a learning curve. So I'm gonna tone that down so it doesn't brown up anymore. But we're gonna pop this in for just about 5 more minutes. All right, while that finishes up baking, let's finish the filling. So I'm gonna add a couple tablespoons of flour and just sprinkle that in. We're gonna add a teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon ground ginger, 1/8 teaspoon nutmeg, and then a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then we're just gonna gently mix in all of the spices and the flour. Okay, so my pie crust is now out of the oven. It's ready for filling. I just turned my oven down to 350 because that's what we're gonna actually bake the pie at. So I'm gonna give it a couple minutes for my oven to cool down. We're gonna add in the filling, and then we're gonna bake it for about 60, 65, maybe even 70 minutes. The recipe calls for it to still jiggle a little bit in the middle, so I'm gonna go with that. I know some people want it fully cooked, but I'm just gonna follow the recipe because that's what I did last year. Pie is officially out of the oven. It smells so good. The crust got a little bit crispy on the edges. I probably could have pulled it a couple minutes sooner, but I still think it's going to be absolutely delicious. So I am just going to let this cool for a few hours. You want pumpkin pie to fully cool down and set before you dig in. So it's probably gonna be hard to wait, but I know it'll be worth it. I made myself a little tasting plate because obviously I had to taste everything. So I'm gonna start with the corn casserole. Okay. It's so good. If you've never made this for Thanksgiving, you have to try it this year. It's basically like cornbread, but not nearly as dry and loaded with corn. It's so good. All right, now we're gonna try this salad. I love the salad. I'm telling you, it just goes really well with a Thanksgiving meal because it just brings in that like zingy brightness that you don't typically get from all the hot cooked food. So good. All right, now I'm gonna give the cranberry sauce a little try. It's so good. It's definitely a little more tart than it is sweet, but it's still very sweet. And the texture is just so good. It's not anything like that slimy canned stuff because it's the real deal. Okay, and last but not least, I've been dying to try this pumpkin pie. The crust came out so crispy. So we love that. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Tastes a million times better than any like store-bought pumpkin pie I've ever had. And I love pumpkin pie. Like if it's at a family gathering or, you know, wherever, like I'm always trying the pumpkin pie because I love it. And I'm telling you, this is so much better. Pie crusts are a little finicky. You can always buy a pie crust if you want to skip that part, but at least make the filling yourself. I still think a homemade crust tastes way better, but at least make the filling yourself. It's so much more flavorful. The texture's better. It's just, oh man. People are gonna love it if you bring this to Thanksgiving, so go ahead and try it. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for joining me on this mini Thanksgiving cooking marathon. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching. I would love to know down below in the comments what your most favorite or maybe like top 3 Thanksgiving dishes. I actually don't even know if I could do that because I love so much of it. I think it's just the mixture of all the different foods is what makes Thanksgiving so incredible. But anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, those of you out there who celebrate it. I hope you have a wonderful time with family, friends, whoever it is who is gathering at your table or whose table you're gathering at. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. All right, kids, come eat.